Oh boy, disclaimer.
Traditions. We all have them, and there are many traditions for different occasions. Weddings, Christmas, funerals, anniversary sex, and so much more. And, of course, as a horror fan, I have many traditions, not just for Halloween, but for the entire month of October. October is easily my favourite month of the year. It's the month of horror, pranks, junk food, and it's when autumn, my favourite season, finally kicks in. And I of course have many traditions for this time of year. Watching as many horror movies as I can, putting up Halloween decorations, and trying all the limited edition Halloween food and drink are just some of the things I like to do. And it wouldn't be October without me sitting my ass down and watching the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror specials. Yes, I know the Simpsons has really fallen off the wagon as of late, and yes, I know it's just a shadow of its former brilliant self. But if there is one thing that is guaranteed with the Simpsons, it's that the Halloween special will be a good watch. The first Treehouse of Horror aired as part of Season 2 back in 1990, and a legacy was born. 30 years later, and the 31st edition of Treehouse of Horror is just around the corner. There are also 31 days in the month of October. I think you can see where I'm going here. Yes, as a special Halloween treat for all 6 of you watching this, I've decided to watch every episode of the series, review them, and then release one review each day of October, in chronological order of course. So get a soda, some popcorn, and dim the lights as we take a look at the very first Simpsons Treehouse of Horror. Before the episode, we get a brief warning from Marge that the episode might be scary for younger viewers, telling parents that it might be best to put the little ones to sleep. It's a simple but effective addition that sets up the episode. So the episode begins with Homer deciding to listen in on Bart and Lisa, who are telling ghost stories in their treehouse. I've got to admit, I miss these story arcs the Treehouse of Horror episodes used to have. And this is one of my favourite arcs because it's so realistic. What is one thing that kids do most at Halloween? Other than eating candy, of course. They tell ghost stories. Hell, when I was a kid, me and my friends would make a den out of some blankets and whatever else we could find, eat sweets and tell scary stories. The idea of each segment being a scary story fits the theme well. So Bart's first story revolves around the Simpson family moving into a haunted house, which really doesn't want them to move in. And that's the premise. It's pretty simple, but it's what they do with it that's great. Unlike most Treehouse segments which parody one source material, this one parodies pretty much every haunted house movie out there. The main two, however, are the Amityville Horror and Poltergeist. The house, like I previously mentioned, isn't too keen on the Simpsons moving in and tries to get rid of them in various ways, including making them float around, making objects fly at their heads, and even telling them to literally get out of the house.
Get out.
Shout out to Harry Shearer for doing such a great job on the house's voice. It's genuinely chilling at times.
Lisa, the butcher knife, Lisa.
The music in this segment is great too. Synthetic music always works great for haunted house atmosphere. As for haunted house tropes, this segment has it all. The amazing house with the unbelievably low price, bleeding walls, floating objects, the people in the house being put into a trance, a vortex into another dimension, and even an ancient Indian burial ground, which just happens to be part of my favourite gag of this segment.
Ancient Indian what? You didn't tell me it was built on an Indian burial ground! He says he mentioned it 5 or 6 times.
The best thing about this segment though is that it manages to be both funny and creepy, which is something most horror comedies aren't even good at. Seeing the family in a trance trying to kill each other with a random array of weapons is terrifying, but seeing Marge grabbing a knife only to be shown making sandwiches is funny. For every tense moment, a funny one follows it close behind. It's a great balance that helps the narrative flow nicely. The segment ends when Marge tells the house to deal with the fact that they've now lived there and that they're just going to have to get along. So the house implodes simply because it doesn't want to spend its life with the Simpsons. Now that's hilarious. I'll happily give Bad Dream House a 9 out of 10. It's a great parody of one of the biggest tropes in horror that manages to be both creepy but funny. Also, the animation is great with some awesome visuals. The next segment, Hungry Are the Damned, is based off of the Twilight Zone episode To Serve Man and is easily the weakest segment of the episode. Why? Because it's dull. The premise is the Simpsons get beamed onto a UFO where they meet 3 aliens who promise to take them to their home planet to treat them like kings. But something fishy is going on and Lisa wants to get to the bottom of it. The issue is the main aspect of the segment, which is the Simpsons on a spaceship, is just uninteresting. All they do is eat, talk. Yeah, it gets tedious. The real issue is the jokes that take place either aren't funny, go on way too long, or are too easy to see coming. For example, the aliens mention that their cable can broadcast over 1 million channels from across the galaxy. Bart then asks, what about HBO? And the aliens reply, no, that will cost extra.
Who didn't see that coming, eh?
Seriously though, it was very obvious. Even the twist is weak. The twist of To Serve Man was that the aliens promising paradise were secretly planning to eat the humans they were taking back to their planet. But here it turns out the aliens weren't planning on eating them. Again, who didn't see that coming? It's not just obvious, it's lazy. It's not an entirely bad segment, mind. It introduces Treehouse mainstays Kang and Kodos, the visuals and animation are nice, and the voice acting is superb. I just think it's a problem when the most interesting and funny part of the segment is the bit where the family's in their yard, not the bit where they're on a spaceship. Still, it gave us this gag.
That should just about do it. Man alive, there's nothing better than a hamburger grilled to perfection.
Overall, I'll give it a 4 out of 10. Ah yes, the Raven. Being honest here, is there anything I can say about this that hasn't already been said? If you were to look up any list of the top whatever number of Treehouse segments, this will almost always be guaranteed in the top 5. There's no question about it. An obvious parody of the Edgar Allan Poe poem of the same name, the segment features Homer as the protagonist, Bart as the titular Raven, and James Earl Jones as the narrator.
Over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping.
That's freaking cool. Fun fact, James Earl Jones actually did voice work for all 3 segments of this episode. He voiced the Moving Man, Sirach the Preparer, the third and never seen again alien, and now the narrator. And his voice is perfect for this. His narration just rattles you to the core and really sells the story. He's not the only thing about this segment that works though. Homer and Bart have their parts to play too. Fair play to Dan Castellaneta for his great work in reading quotes from the poem as Homer.
Sure, no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the nice Plutonian shore.
It surprisingly works well with the narration, and the chemistry between Homer and Bart is on point.
Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door,
Quoth the Raven.
Nevermore.
why, you little...
The balance between parody and tribute is fantastic, with enough of The Simpsons showing through at the right time, but not so much that it distracts from the source material. It's easy to see why this is one of the more famous Treehouse segments. It's beautifully animated, the voice work is fantastic, and all of it just fits together neatly. Easy 9 out of 10 from me. Well, you can see why Treehouse of Horror became a staple of The Simpsons. This episode rocks. Sure, the midsection was a little meh, but it was watchable, and both Bad Dream House and The Raven were fantastic. If I had to pick a favourite, I actually think Bad Dream House would take it just because of how much they managed to fit into one segment. So many different tropes were parodied, and parodied well. What else can I say other than this episode rocked? 7 out of 10 and a great start to the series. And that's it for this review and this video. What were your thoughts on the first Treehouse of Horror? Do you agree with me or do you think I'm talking twaddle? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.